Hola, quiero presentar a todos ustedes a la profesora Tracey Rowland. Tracey Rowland es profesora en la Universidad de Notre Dame de Australia y está con todos nosotros en la Universidad Católica de Ávila para impartir una conferencia y hemos aprovechado su visita a la ciudad y a nuestra universidad para poderle hacer una breve entrevista, conocer mejor a su persona y la obra que ella realiza como teóloga. Ella tiene una formación muy amplia en lenguas modernas, en derecho, en filosofía y en teología y actualmente dirige la Cátedra de Investigación teológica Juan Pablo II en la Universidad de Notre Dame de Australia. Ella es una de las 5 mujeres miembros de la Comisión teológica internacional desde 2014 y también es miembro del Consejo Editorial de la revista internacional Comisión. Ella ha sido decana y miembro permanente del Instituto Juan Pablo II para Estudios de Matrimonio y la Familia en Melbourne. Y quería darte las gracias por estar aquí, profesora Rowland, y me gustaría hacerte unas preguntas. No sabemos si esta es para usted la primera vez en Ávila y la primera vez en España. Usted viene de lejos. ¿Quién es Tracey Rowland? ¿Qué visión de España tiene? ¿Qué le evoca a usted la ciudad y la Santa de Ávila, Santa Teresa de Jesús?
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to visit the University of Avila. I love coming to Spain. I've been here now about, I think, 7 times. During my first visits, I visited only Andalusia because I was invited by the Edith Stein Institute in Granada. So my first experience of Spain was really the south of Spain, Granada, Sevilla, Cordoba, and for someone from the New World, Spain has so much history and so much Catholic history that it's almost a necessary part of a Catholic theologian's education to actually visit Spain, to visit the centres of Catholic culture and scholarship within Spain. And so for me, being here is always a wonderful experience. And this is now the second time I've been in Avila, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting the students here. I come from the University of Notre Dame in Australia, and Notre Dame has 3 campuses actually. One in Sydney on the east coast of Australia, one in Fremantle on the west coast of Australia, and one in Broome, which is also on the west coast but a long way north. So we're part of the international network of Catholic universities.
Ratzinger aludía en una ocasión a 2 problemas que puede tener un teólogo hoy: que se haga preguntas que la gente no tiene y que, por tanto, busque y encuentre respuestas por las que la gente hoy no siente ningún interés. ¿Cuáles son en su postura las preguntas que hoy debe hacerse la teología? ¿Qué respuestas busca y necesita conocer hoy nuestro tiempo?
You asked the question about what are some of the most important theological issues of today, and I think pastorally one of the most important issues is helping people to understand how God actually relates to people. It's as if we've had Christianity for such a long time that people have forgotten almost the alphabet of Christianity. They have forgotten the basics of Christianity because Christianity has become so much a part of different cultures that it's almost as if the cultural manifestations are what people see first, and they don't always understand the underlying theology. And I think one of the most important issues is really helping people to understand how God relates to them And in theological terms, we talk about the sacramental economy. You know, how does God relate to the people through the sacraments, through the church? And it's also important, I think, to emphasize that the Christian God is a Trinity. And so we need to understand how God, the Holy Spirit, relates to us, how God, the Son, relates to us, how God, the Father, relates to us. We need to have that sort of bigger picture. We need to understand who we are in relation to the Trinity. And I think a lot of really excellent work has been done on that by theologians in the 20th century, but it hasn't quite filtered down to the parish level. So I think we need to try and consider ways of making the basics of Christianity better understood by people who may have been baptized as Catholics, but have not really had a Catholic intellectual formation.
Abordaremos otra temática distinta. Usted es mujer, una de las pocas, solo son 5, mujeres miembros de la Comisión Teológica Internacional. Y me gustaría preguntarle, Tracey, ¿qué tiene que aportar hoy la mujer en la Iglesia? ¿Qué puede aportar la mujer en el campo específico de la teología? Y ¿diría usted que la mujer tiene una tarea específicamente femenina en este terreno?
You asked about the International Theological Commission and the fact that there are some women on the International Theological Commission. I think I'm fortunate to have been born at the right time to be a woman and to have received a theological education. Of course, throughout the centuries, there have been some really great Catholic female theologians and scholars, and some of them are doctors of the church. And of course you know that here in Avila, because one of them is Saint Teresa of Avila, but she's not the only one. But I think in the past, if one was a woman, then the only real possibility of a deep theological education was to be a part of a religious community, to be a nun, to be in a monastery, to be, you know, someone like Saint Hildegard of Bingen. When you join a monastery, you are educated within the monastery, you have access to the great literature of the church. Today, however, in most parts of the world, it's possible for someone to have a theological education and be a member of the lay estate. And so I'm lucky to be in that category. I'm married. I won a scholarship to Cambridge University, and I studied theology at Cambridge. I got a doctorate in theology from Cambridge, and then I ended up getting a second doctorate from the Lateran University in Rome. So I've had an education that's both through the civil university system and also through the pontifical system. And I think today really there are no barriers for women who want to seriously study theology. I have never experienced any kind of chauvinism from among educated clerics. You know, my experience has been very positive. I find that when I attend theology conferences in Rome, the people who are male professors, whether they are priests or laymen, you know, they just accept me as another professor. In some cases, they've read my books or articles, and we just relate scholar to scholar. And that's a good thing, and I think that I'm probably part of the first generation for whom that is a normal experience. And I think in the future there will be many more women involved in theology, both lay women and also women in religious life as well.
Y la siguiente pregunta que le quiero hacer es sobre el matrimonio y la familia. Usted ha trabajado este tema. ¿Comprendemos suficientemente en la Iglesia, a su juicio, la urgencia de la protección de la familia? ¿Dónde debemos prestar atención en estos momentos para salvar la frágil barquilla del matrimonio y de la familia que sufre tantos ataques?
You mentioned the importance of the institution of the family, and I agree entirely. I think there is no other institution in Western civilization more under attack at the moment than the family. I understand that Saint Lucia of Fatima, who lived very close to Avila, she once remarked that the attack on the family was like the devil's end game, to use a football term, that it was his last strategy for attacking humanity. And I think that the family is the place, it's sort of locus of love, a locus of goodness, a locus of truth, a locus of beauty. And so all the evil forces in the world, they can concentrate their energies on attacking the family because it is such a locus of all that is good. And I think that when it comes to defending the family, intellectual arguments are important, but in fact what is much more powerful is just the witness of good, strong families. Because as our civilization becomes more godless and people become more confused, I think it will be the functional Christian families who will stand out as these little oases of civilization, and people will be attracted to their way of life. So I think that people who are putting their energy into building strong families should know that what they are doing is probably the most important thing that can be done in the life of the world today. And if, you know, they don't have to be on television defending the family, they don't have to be writing books. It's good if they do that, but they don't have to do that. They just have to build strong families, and that will make a huge difference, I think.
Por último, me gustaría hacer mención al Papa Benedicto XVI. De sus 5 libros publicados, 2 están dedicados a su teología. Además, están traducidos al español. En uno de ellos presenta al Papa emérito como uno de los pontífices más significativos desde la época de la Reforma. Háblenos de lo que a usted le hace ver con tanto aprecio y admiración la persona y la teología de nuestro Papa alemán.
I think that in the future Pope Benedict will be declared to be not merely a saint, but a doctor of the Church. And the concept of a doctor of the Church is someone who is not just a saint, but someone whose intellectual work has made a huge difference in solving pastoral and intellectual crises in the life of the Church. And I think that different pontiffs bring different gifts to the papacy. And I think that St. John Paul II and Pope Benedict were like this intellectual tag team, we would say in English, an intellectual duo. St. John Paul II was primarily a philosopher, Pope Benedict primarily a theologian, but the two of them kind of had this intellectual partnership. And I think that in the future, and already it is already happening, people are reading their works to gain an understanding of the intellectual crisis in which the whole of Western civilization is currently involved, and will find intellectual treasure there for the resolution of these crises. And I Googled recently the names of like 10 20th century theologians. The one who got the largest number of hits was the Calvinist theologian Karl Barth. I can't remember the number, but Barth topped the list, okay? But Ratzinger/Benedict came in second. So, you know, of all the 20th century theologians, he comes in second and he comes in first among the Catholic theologians. So I think, you know, I think he was a scholar pope, and I think younger Catholics now read him because they are discovering that he understands the pastoral crises that they have been born into, and they find him easy to understand. One doesn't need to have a degree in theology to read his books and understand them. So I think that he is a church doctor of our time.
Pues muchísimas gracias por su tiempo y espero que podamos volverle a tener pronto con nosotros en Ávila. Muchas gracias, Tracey.